My name is Aurelia Voss, 32 years old. I slow my car to a crawl at the mouth of my parents' Buckhead driveway, fingers whitening around the steering wheel like it might try to steer me back to wherever people go when home stops being safe. 6 months. It's been 6 months since I let this place take a bite out of me. The brick colonial looks exactly as it always has. Hedges trimmed like they're afraid to breathe, shutters aligned as if inspected by a drill sergeant, judgment radiating politely from every window. I park behind my father's Mercedes, check the mirror, confirm the armor. Perfect liner, hairpin smooth, expression that says nothing can touch me. It used to be makeup. Tonight, it's plate steel. Inside, the foyer smells like furniture polish and my mother's perfume, a floral that announces elegance and hides impatience. The sounds of activity pull me to the dining room, where Eleanor Walker is finessing the angle of a sterling serving spoon as if it could change the trajectory of our family. Aurelia, you're here, she says without looking up. Not a hug, not even a hello, just a roll call. Would you put the water glasses out? Your father's almost done with the brisket. I open the china cabinet and let my eyes map the room like a crime scene. The walnut sideboard is a shrine to my brother. Preston with the mayor, Preston at Harvard, Preston holding a lucite plaque that reads something like excellence, as if the word belonged to him. There's a single photo of me, high school graduation, half hidden by a pewter frame of Preston, shaking hands with a man whose teeth cost more than my first car. Arthur appears from the kitchen, carving knife in hand, cheeks flushed with a pride he never spent on me. Sunday brisket's almost ready, he announces to the air. His kiss the cook apron, Preston's Father's Day gift, hangs like a medal of domestic heroism. Smells wonderful, I lie. Arthur's brisket is an institution by now, dry enough to file legal documents on. Eleanor circles again, aligning napkins a third time. Preston should be here any minute. He texted about a call with Tokyo. Of course, the rules are different for the sun my parents orbit. As if the house heard its favorite name, the front door swings wide. Hello, family, Preston booms, navy suit tailored like a second skin, shoes whispering money across the hardwood. Even on Sunday, he dresses like a closing bell. There he is, Eleanor beams, wrapping him in a hug while Arthur claps his shoulder. Sorry I'm late, Preston says, loosening his tie. Kensington acquisition. Had to settle a few things. That's my boy, Arthur says, carving knife, now a scepter. Always closing. We take our assigned positions. Arthur at the head, Eleanor to his right, Preston to his left, me facing the blank wall. Arthur saws into the brisket. Eleanor orchestrates sides with a conductor's finesse. So, Preston, Arthur says, already plating the best cut. How's life treating Atlanta's young finance star? Preston accepts the plate like a tribute. Can't complain. Just closed another round. 8 figures. He chews, swallows, wipes his mouth with a napkin that looks relieved to be useful. Actually, I've been looking at a place. West Paces, modern, floor-to-ceiling windows, floating staircase. The works. 5.2. Eleanor's pupils become champagne bubbles. West Paces, that's prime. Arthur whistles. Bachelor pad for a king. Preston nods, casual. Viewing Tuesday. Offer by week's end. They glow at him. Light doesn't reflect. It cooks. Eleanor turns to me, a thought flickering across her face like a fly she doesn't want to touch. And you, Aurelia? How's that little online shop? I sip water. I've been house hunting too. 2 beats of silence. Then the room erupts. Preston laughs first, the practiced bark of a man who's never needed grace. Arthur's chuckle follows, paternal and dismissive. Eleanor smiles in that careful way that says darling and means don't. Good one, Preston says, wiping a tear he didn't earn. Stick to your trinkets, sis. Leave the big moves to the adults. I place my glass down precisely so it won't show my hands shaking. Speaking of, Preston adds, reaching for wine, I'm looking at pouring capital into a new e-com player, Modern Hearth. They'll crush the hobby shops. Something tightens behind my ribs. A memory darts out. Me at 20, a 5-page business plan warm from the printer, standing in Arthur's study while hope did dangerous things to my chest. What do you think? I'd asked. He skimmed, patted my head. Cute, sweetheart. Preston just got Goldman Sachs. That night I learned how to swallow a vow. Never again. Back at the table, Eleanor nudges a pecan pie toward me. Have dessert, dear. You're looking thin. I give her the smile that's protected me since high school, the one that doesn't ask for permission because it knows it won't get it. They don't notice. They never do. They don't know the perennial house cleared 35 million last year. They don't know our candles ran in 6 magazines last quarter. They don't know 47 paychecks go out with my signature every 2 weeks. They know cute. They know little. They know a version of me that makes their story simple. I should get going, I say, standing. Work tomorrow, Preston smirks. Playing store. Real business starts early for us, Arthur adds, genial as a cuff. At the door, Eleanor presses foil-wrapped leftovers into my hands. Since you probably don't cook much. I step into the night with my hands full and my heart empty and something sharp taking shape where the emptiness used to be. In the car, I put the pie on the passenger seat and stare at the windshield until my reflection looks like someone who might save me. Enough! I call Reese. He picks up on the first ring. How is the theater production? Preston wants a house on West Paces, 5.2, modern, glass, a staircase that floats to nowhere. Reese is quiet for a beat. And? I want it. The house? Yes, I say, tasting it, and the room it puts me in, and the air I breathe when I stop pretending. On Monday morning, the perennial house looks like success, because it is. Reese is at the windows of my downtown office, surveying what we built. White plains, clean lines, color punctuated by the objects that pay for it all. The wall behind him is a museum of things I never showed my family. Magazine covers, award plaques, headlines that say, Disruptor with affection. How bad, he asks when I step in, though his eyes already know. They laughed, I say, placing my purse on the chair like a witness. He bragged about modern hearth. He called my life a hobby. An assistant appears with fabric swatches, hesitates at my face, then proceeds. Milan samples, Ms. Voss. I touch them. Softness is a language this building speaks fluently. Perfect for spring, I say. Production meeting tomorrow. When the door closes, Reese leans against his desk. 5 years, he says. 5 years of execution, and they still think you're playing. I've enabled that, I answer, walking to the glass. By hiding. By protecting their feelings from my facts. Reese nods toward the city. The house? I can afford it. Easily, he agrees, already opening his laptop. Holbrook has the listing. She loved us after that charity thing. If we go all cash, no contingencies, we can shut the door before your brother irons a shirt. Form an LLC, I say. Close fast. He grins, battle light in his eyes. Tomorrow at 10? Tomorrow at 10. Hours blur. Contracts grow teeth. The listing agent purrs the way agents do when paperwork sings. Reese moves pieces I put on the board years ago, and the board remembers me. We tour the place the next morning. The realtor's heels tick against marble like a metronome. Reese whispers color commentary, irreverent enough to make me smile. The kitchen is a cathedral of stone and light. The appliances hum like they know their worth. The glass wall is a curtain the city can't resist. The floating staircase pulls me up as if the house chose me first. Any other offers? I ask, touching the island's edge. Just one, she says brightly. Finance guy. Bank approvals pending. Reese doesn't look at me. He doesn't have to. All Cash LLC closes by Friday, he tells her. They'll be thrilled, she says, practically levitating. They are. Within hours, it's done. No contingencies. No inspection period. Just a wire that lands like a gavel. Poetic, Reese says that night, flipping through the electronic confirmation. We should do a reveal. A what? A no-name housewarming, he says. Envelopes with no host. Let Atlanta's finest come inventory the art and the square footage and their own envy. Let your parents tell themselves it's tech money until you appear on the stairs. I picture Eleanor's hand gliding over a console vase from our autumn line. Arthur praising the craftsmanship of a home their daughter paid for. Preston calculating comps like a man trying to price a ghost. I picture the moment a room learns a new language. That's petty, I say. It's precise, Reese says. I take a long breath and nod. Invite everyone who matters, and my family. The invitations go out on heavy cream cards, black type, no name. New West Paces residence. Housewarming. Date. Time. Address. Eleanor calls the next day. Darling, did you get an invitation to a housewarming on West Paces? Likely one of Preston's colleagues. You should come, network. I'll be there, I say. You should too. Of course. Preston thinks it's the new tech office opening. We must make connections. Of course, I echo, and when I hang up, Reese raises an eyebrow across my desk. They took the bait? Hook, line, sink. Good, he says, turning back to his screen. Also, heard a whisper about Kensington and your brother's fund. Overexposed. If the wrong wind blows... I look past him at the skyline, its teeth catching sunlight. Foreshadowing? I ask. Atmospheric pressure, he answers. 3 weeks sprint. Designers swarm like a quiet army. I pick paint the way some people pick battles. Our spring collection settles into the rooms like it was designed for them. Which, in a way, it was. A lighting tech adjusts a sconce until it whispers exactly the right secret. The house becomes mine, molecule by molecule. On a Thursday coffee drop at my parents', to keep Eleanor from sending a wellness check, voices leak from Arthur's study. Preston's tight, angry. Some anonymous buyer swooped in, all cash. The West Pace's place. Gone. You'll find better, Eleanor soothes, smoothing the air. Kensington's timing is tight, Arthur says, voice low, calculation wrapped in concern. I can call a banker, get priority on the next listing. I slip out before the floor learns my footsteps. Information acquired. Puzzle pieces ask for their neighbors. On Saturday evening, the house glows. Uplights kiss the modern lines. The glass throws back the city in flattering angles. Inside, catering glides. The quartet tunes strings that know how to fill silence. Guests arrive in waves. Bankers and gallery owners and people who never wait in line. They murmur admiration. Ask each other whose house this is. Guess wrong. I move through them as if I belong here, because I do. And for once, anonymity is a crown. The door opens again. Arthur first, jaw set. Eleanor clinging to her handbag like a life preserver. Preston scanning square footage and status like a scanner at checkout. Whose house? Eleanor stage whispers, taking a flute from a passing tray. Tech money? Old Atlanta money, Preston says, palm sliding across marble. 5.2, easy. They wander, they admire, they miss the obvious. Eleanor pauses at a console vase. Looks like one of Aurelia's things. Probably a knockoff, Preston says, moving on. From the balcony landing, Reese catches my eye and raises his glass. The signal. He taps the crystal with a spoon. The chime cleaves the room. Ladies and gentlemen, he says, smiling, our host would like to say a few words. Heads tilt upward, 100 faces learning to focus. I step to the top of the floating stairs, the room falling into a hush you can feel in your bones. I find my family. Arthur's confusion. Eleanor's mouth open. Preston's eyes narrowing as math fails him. Welcome, I say, voice steady, carrying. My family worried about my future. They thought my hobby couldn't pay the bills. I'm glad they're here to see what that hobby bought. I take a breath. Welcome to my house. Silence lands, hot and perfect. Somewhere a phone slips from a hand and kisses marble, a beat. Then the room converts shock into applause, bright and sincere. Across the clapping, an editor lifts her glass toward me. Aurelia, Perennial's autumn issue was our favorite, she calls. This is spectacular. Arthur goes pale. Eleanor's smile fractures. Preston looks like a man who just discovered gravity works on him, too. 5.2, I add calmly, paid in cash. I don't watch their faces to drink their surprise. I watch them to memorize the moment the world rearranges itself around me, not because I asked, but because I built it. The morning after the reveal, the house woke like a cat stretching in sun, quiet, satisfied, certain it had chosen the right owner. I padded through rooms that now held the weight of my decisions instead of the echo of other people's expectations, the scent of last night's gardenias still living in the air. The caterers had ghosted away at dawn. The quartet's final notes clung to the stair rail as if the strings had left fingerprints. I set a mug on the marble island and let the steam fog the bottom of the window, while the skyline blinked awake beyond the glass. Freedom had a taste, I discovered. It was warm and unhurried, with a back note of earned. By 9, Reese was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled and laptop already breathing charts. He didn't bother with hello. Holbrook texted, he said, sliding his phone toward me. Preston called her twice after the party, demanded to know who closed. She told him an LLC, which is the truth and also not the comfort he wanted. I sipped my coffee. How'd he take it? Like a man who thought a door was reserved for him and found it locked from the inside. Reese's gaze flicked to the stair, where last night I'd chosen to climb into my own life in front of witnesses. We should assume that after the humiliation comes movement. He'll need a win soon. You mean he'll go hunting? I said. He already is. Reese tapped his screen. Our social team pulled last night's mentions. A hedge fund associate posted a photo of your staircase with 3 champagne flutes in frame and the caption, "When the market slaps your narrative." The comments are a knife fight about modern hearth. I leaned over his shoulder. It was all there in shorthand. Rumors of supply chain delays, a leaked email about missed ship windows, a link to an analyst note calling Modern Hearth ambitious but undermuscled. The note was 2 days old. We had purchased their 3rd largest ceramics supplier last week. Accelerate the rest, I said, quietly. He nodded. I've got NDAs drafted for 2 more textile mills and the Eastern warehouse. If we land those, Modern Hearth's 90-day roadmap becomes fiction. Don't break anything publicly, I said. Let gravity do that part. It had taken me a long time to learn that certain victories were ruined by noise. I didn't need to announce that we were buying the ground under another company's feet. I needed the ground to shift, and then to be standing where the footing was good when the dust settled. We walked the house like auditors of our own taste. The living room, with its long gray walls and low, confident couch. The dining room, where my table would seat people who had learned how to listen. Upstairs, the master's 3 walls of glass waited for light, the bath's white stone waiting for the year to rinse the last decade from my bones. I pointed at a bare section of the hallway. Gallery wall, I said to nobody, and to the version of me who used to hide her magazine covers in a drawer. Not for trophies, for letters. Notes from customers, people who use the bowls we made to feed the people they love. Reese smiled. I'll have the team mock layouts. The doorbell chimed, a sound that still startled me when it lived in my house. The lead designer arrived with swatch books and a salve of ideas. We made quick work of decisions. This fabric because it forgives and photographs well. These sconces because they make every face softer. These rugs because feet remember kindness. My phone buzzed. Eleanor. House was unexpected. Guests were stunned. We should talk. Family business. Lunch this week? No apology, no acknowledgement. Just an attempt to step into the stream as if she had been swimming it all along. Not yet, I said aloud, more to myself than to Reese. Let the silence teach. We scheduled installations and walkthroughs. By mid-afternoon, I needed the kind of air that moved without asking. We took the elevator down and walked out onto the terrace. The city heat pressed its hand against us. The wind lifted a strand of my hair and put it back exactly where it belonged. Reese checked his watch, then his email, then his patience. Also, he said casually, which meant it wasn't casual. A mutual contact at Westridge says Preston's last 2 quarters missed targets by double digits. They spun it with macro headwinds on the call, but a limited partner is sniffing around. If Kensington goes sideways, they'll need a bridge or a miracle. They'll call it a bridge, I said. They always do. I thought about Arthur's voice at the party, lowered at the bar, saying temporary cash flow, the way men in his circle said temporary, as if clutching the word could make it true. I remembered how Eleanor's smile had hardened into a porcelain that would crack if anyone knocked too hard. We spent the rest of the week in 2 worlds. The visible one where trucks brought furniture wrapped in thick gray blankets and men with straps carried weight like choreography. And the invisible one where emails in clean fonts slid silently across digital desks in factories that smelled like dye and time. In one world, I chose the exact white for the guest bedroom because my college roommate, now a surgeon with a schedule like a weather pattern, needed rest that felt like a clean sheet. In the other, I approved a term sheet that moved Modern Hearth's packaging vendor into our orbit for reasons that were both ethical and efficient. Reese moved through both with the ease of a man who had finally found a mission that didn't bleed cynicism. On Friday, Holbrook sent a photo of a bouquet Preston had ordered delivered to her office with a note that read, "Let me make it worth your while to tell me what you can't put in the press release." She forwarded it with no commentary. Reese typed, "Return to sender." Saturday was a rehearsal for the housewarming that would not admit it was a performance. The caterer's captain walked me through the path of champagne, trade a hand to empty universe where some people believe bubbles are air, and I edited past canapes like a ruthless editor. The quartet tested acoustics while one violinist, noticing a painting, asked who the artist was. "A woman in her 20s, I said. "She paints like people breathe. We're featuring her in the fall collection." He smiled like a person who collects small good things for later. That night, alone in the master, I lay awake and listened to the house learn me. Every home has a sound when it is empty of performance, the sigh of HVAC, the thin patter of tree against glass, the distant laughter of someone on a sidewalk living a different life. I thought about the staircase where I would stand tomorrow and say a sentence that would change nothing about me and everything about the way the room sorted itself. Then I thought about a warehouse in New Jersey where a manager would open an email on Monday and realize the orders he had been waiting on would not come because we had bought the company that sent them. Neither thought gave me joy, both gave me clarity. In the morning, I stopped by my parents for the performance Eleanor demanded. Coffee in the kitchen under the pretense of drop in more often, which had become more imperative since she learned I could be a conduit to rooms she used to want to enter through Preston. From the hallway, I heard Preston in Arthur's study again, angry and tinny, the way expensive phones make rage sound thinner. "Anonymous, Dad, all cash," he said. "Nobody does that unless they're laundering or they're lying." "Or they're liquid," Arthur said, and the words snapped like a rubber band. "Modern Hearth is fine," Preston continued. "We just need to stabilize supply, short term, after the Kensington close. I've got a call with Tokyo at 4. "Tell your mother to invite their people," Arthur said. "Make connections. Fix it with a table." I left before he could see me. There are nights when I would have knocked and stepped into the doorway, let the light cut me into stripes, said a sentence that would have knocked over a few of his. Today, I wanted him to meet his own echo. On my drive home, Reese called. "One more thing," he said. "Eastern Warehousing. They'll sign if we keep the staff. They're tired of being squeezed by Modern Hearth's late payments." "Keep everyone," I said. "People are not pawns." "Done," he said. "Aurelia?" "Yes." "Tomorrow will be loud. Let me run interference." "Do what you do," I said. "And if anyone asks whose house it is, tell them it belongs to whoever pays the gardeners." He laughed, then sobered. "And after?" "After is quiet," I said. "We put our heads down and build." The afternoon slid into evening like silk. I walked the rooms once more. I adjusted a frame. I moved a bowl 3 inches. I opened and closed the hidden pantry door because I could. At the landing, I looked down and pictured the space filled, all those faces turned up. I put a hand on the rail, where wood met glass, and felt how the join was seamless, how the line between strength and transparency, done right, looks like nothing at all. The invitations had been clear, no host named. The RSVP list glowed with the right last names. I decked the house in light, not to blind anyone, but to make it impossible to pretend not to see. Before bed, I stood on the terrace and watched the city right itself in windows. Somewhere out there, my brother was rehearsing a pitch that didn't know the floor would change next week. Somewhere in a warehouse, a forklift driver was ending a shift and going home to a kid's science project left on the counter. Somewhere, a woman set a bowl we'd made onto a table and called people to eat. Those were the only 3 economies I trusted: truth, work, and the table. I slept without dreams. Morning arrived, dressed in confidence. By 7, the catering truck idled out front. By 8, the quartet carried cases. By 9, Reese stood at my island with a clipboard and a grin. He handed me a glass of water stealthily like it was armor. "It's almost funny," he said, checking a box. "They taught you to wear a mask. You built a face." "Something they can't remove," I said. The doorbell rang, and the day, finally, began. By dusk, the house had become its own event. Light spilled from the floor-to-ceiling windows like champagne poured too fast, glinting off the black glass pool, catching the rims of every crystal flute in motion. Caterers in black drifted through the rooms like notes of music, resetting trays before they emptied, replacing plates before hunger could name itself. The quartet had begun their first set, Bach rendered like silk, and somewhere near the entrance, the low hum of admiration had already gathered momentum. I watched from the balcony at the top of the floating staircase, invisible behind a line of shadow and glass. From up here, the guests moved like a choreography of power: brokers, editors, interior designers, old Atlanta names, new Atlanta money. Every voice carried an opinion about the house, the architecture, the view. Every voice also carried the same question. Whose place is this? A banker in a tux murmured to his wife, 5+ easy, has to be hedge fund money. His wife, studying the lines of the staircase, said, or old inheritance. No one that young buys all cash. I almost laughed. No one that young had been my family's thesis statement for years. Downstairs, Reese glided through the crowd like smoke, fielding compliments, redirecting curiosity. To the guests who asked who owned the house, he answered with practiced ambiguity. A client, a creative, someone who prefers work to introductions. He caught my eye from below and lifted his glass in a small salute, a signal. Everything was ready. The front door opened again. The air changed. Arthur entered first, jaw locked, eyes already scanning for recognition. Eleanor followed, perfect posture, clutching a silver clutch that gleamed like armor. Preston trailed behind, phone in one hand, arrogance in the other. They stopped just inside, the kind of pause people make when they expect the room to notice them. But the room didn't. Room? Whose house is this? Eleanor asked, her voice pitched higher than normal, carrying easily across the marble foyer. Has to be tech money, Preston replied, smoothing his cuff. Or someone playing at it. They wandered deeper into the main room. I tracked them through the crowd's reflections on glass. Arthur pausing to inspect the fireplace mantel, Eleanor touching the velvet of the sofa as though testing worth, Preston's gaze sweeping the staircase with a flicker of envy that almost looked like recognition. When they reached the console table near the living room, Eleanor stopped short. Her hand hovered over a tall ceramic vase, pale gray, hand-scored, perfectly imperfect. This looks like one of Aurelia's, she said to Preston. He barely looked. Probably a knockoff. Hers are mass-produced, aren't they? I took a slow breath. The moment had arrived. Reese's voice rang out, smooth and clear. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, tapping his glass with a spoon. If I could have your attention, our host would like to say a few words. Heads tilted upward, conversations folded shut, music faded to a polite hum. I stepped forward into the light at the top of the staircase, the hem of my dress catching gold from the chandelier. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Good evening, I said. My voice carried across the room, calm and steady. My family has always worried about my future. They thought my little business couldn't possibly pay the bills, so I'm glad they're here tonight to see what that little business built. I let the words find their place, then added softly, welcome to my house. Silence. A perfect, weighted silence. The kind that trembles before it shatters. Then, somewhere in the room, a glass clinked against another, and applause began. Scattered at first, then rolling, warm, undeniable. Eleanor's face froze halfway between a smile and collapse. Arthur's complexion turned the color of paper. Preston's phone slipped from his hand, landing with a small, precise crack against the marble. The editor from Modern Design Quarterly raised her glass. Aurelia, this is magnificent. We featured your winter line last issue. It's even better in person. I inclined my head. Thank you. It's been a busy year. Guests swarmed forward. Congratulations, questions, flash photography. My name rolled across the room like something they'd just discovered, but would pretend they'd always known. Arthur fought his way through the crowd until he reached me at the foot of the stairs. He kept his smile for the room, but his voice, when it reached me, was a hiss. What in God's name do you think you're doing? I met his eyes evenly. Hosting a party? This is some kind of stunt? No, I said. It's ownership. There's a difference. Eleanor appeared beside him, hand clutching his sleeve. Aurelia, darling, she said brightly, her voice pitched for public consumption. You could have told us. We'd have helped. You already did, I said. You taught me exactly what not to expect. Preston stood a few feet away, watching. I could see the numbers running behind his eyes, the recalculations, the denial turning into panic. When he finally spoke, his tone was acid wrapped in charm. So, he said, you bought a house. Big deal. You must have had investors. None, I said. Cash. He blinked. You don't have that kind of money. I do, I said. And I made it honestly, which is more than I can say for your Kensington deal. His jaw twitched. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I asked, and took a sip of champagne. He started to answer, but Reese appeared at my shoulder, like an angel who knew better than to wear wings. Excuse me, he said smoothly. Our host is wanted by the press. Preston shot him a glare sharp enough to draw blood. Reese didn't even blink. I let myself be steered away, my pulse steady, my expression composed. The party resumed its rhythm around us, laughter returning, champagne flowing. Behind me, my family huddled together in a small, imploding constellation. From across the room, I saw Eleanor reach for Arthur's arm, whispering something that made his face tighten further. Preston's expression had shifted again, past anger now, into the cold arithmetic of damage control. They would recover, of course. They always had. But something permanent had shifted, not in their perception of me, but in my own. For the first time, I didn't need their recognition to make the moment real. Reese handed me a fresh glass. "You okay?" "Yes," I said, "better than okay." He nodded toward the cluster of guests by the windows. "You're trending already. Buckhead mystery host revealed as self-made design mogul. They're calling you the new face of Southern modernism." I smiled. Let them. When the last guest drifted out after midnight, I stood alone in the center of the living room, heels in one hand, champagne in the other. The city beyond the glass shimmered with streetlights and possibility. Upstairs, I could still hear the faint echo of applause. It wasn't revenge that warmed me. It was relief. Clean, simple, absolute. For once, I hadn't fought to be seen. I'd simply stepped into the light and stayed there. By Monday morning, the fallout had already started. Atlanta's business blogs carried headlines like, "Walker Air, outshined by self-made sister, at lavish West Pace's gala. Perennial house founder revealed as industry's quiet power player." Reese scrolled through the articles in my office, half smiling. "Public sympathy's all on your side," he said. "They're calling it poetic." I leaned against the window, watching the traffic pulse below. Poetic would be if any of them actually learned something. He looked up. "You mean your family?" I didn't answer. He already knew. By midweek, Modern Hearth's stock began its slow fall, a decline small enough to look like coincidence, sharp enough to smell like blood. Our analysts watched the numbers from the glass conference room upstairs, quietly trading glances as every dip made our competitors' investors flinch. Reese briefed me at noon. "We've acquired 3 of their secondary suppliers," he said. "Another 2 are interested. Give it a month, and they won't be able to ship without our permission." I nodded. "Keep it quiet. I don't want headlines. I want results." He hesitated. "You sure you're not doing this for revenge?" "I'm doing it because control is the only apology I'll ever get," I said. He studied me for a beat, then smiled faintly. Fair enough. That night, alone in the house, I reread the text Eleanor had sent that afternoon. "Darling, about the party. Maybe we should start fresh. There's room for all of us at the table if we work together. Preston can help you scale. Family unity is everything." I set the phone down, untouched. The irony of that last sentence was almost art. By Friday, Reese had news. "They're scrambling," he said, sliding a report across my desk. Preston's firm tried to renegotiate their supplier contracts. The terms were impossible. 2 vendors walked. One's already signed with us. I skimmed the report. "And the warehouse in Newark?" "Ready for closing. If we take it, they'll lose half their distribution capacity." I looked up. "And then take it." He paused. "You realize what that means?" "Yes," I said. "It means the people who once called my company a hobby are about to watch it buy the roof over their heads." Over the next 2 weeks, the chessboard shifted exactly as planned. Modern Hearth's shipping delays hit the trades. Customer complaints trended on social media. Their sleek branding campaign turned into a punchline. Preston's smiling face appeared in Finance Weekly next to the phrase, "reckless optimism." I didn't celebrate, I just worked. Then, one morning, Reese stepped into my office, eyes bright. "It's done," he said. "The bankruptcy filing went public an hour ago. Perennial House is now the majority creditor. Once the court signs off, we own them." The news spread fast. Investors panicked. Preston's firm bled clients. Eleanor called 3 times that day, Arthur twice. I ignored them all. On Sunday, my assistant knocked on the door of my office. "Ms. Voss, your family's here," she said carefully. I took a breath and nodded. "Send them in." Arthur entered first, shoulders rounded under a weight I'd never seen him carry. Eleanor followed, eyes rimmed red. Preston lagged behind, silent, unshaven, his once impeccable suit hanging loose. They sat opposite me at the long oak table. No one spoke for a full minute. Finally, Arthur cleared his throat. "Aurelia," he began, "we need your help." The words were small, almost childlike. I folded my hands. "With what?" "Preston's investments got out," he said. "Kensington went under. Modern Hearth collapsed. We co-signed. Our savings." He stopped, voice breaking. Eleanor took over, whispering, "We've lost everything." I said nothing. Preston finally looked up, eyes hollow. You don't understand how markets work. These things happen. I understand perfectly, I said quietly. You gambled with other people's money, including our parents. He flinched. Arthur leaned forward. You have resources. If you could lend us. No, I said. Eleanor reached across the table, tears threatening her composure. Aurelia, please, we're family. Family? I repeated, the word tasting foreign. You laughed when I said I was house hunting. You called my work a hobby. Preston tried to fund my competitor. You only look at me when you need rescue. Arthur's face darkened. Don't take that tone with your father. I'm not, I said. I'm taking it with a man who never saw me until I owned something he couldn't. Eleanor sobbed. We made mistakes. No, I said, rising. You made choices. I walked to the door and opened it. Afternoon light spilled across the marble floor. Get off my property. Arthur stood slowly, rage and humiliation warring behind his eyes. Eleanor clung to him, whispering my name like a prayer that wouldn't rise. Preston didn't move until the last moment. At the threshold, he turned, jaw tight. You think this makes you better than us? No, I said, it makes me free. When the door closed, the echo settled into something that felt like absolution. For a long time, I just stood there, listening to the silence fill every corner they'd once owned in my mind. Reese arrived an hour later, 2 coffees in hand. He handed me one without a word. Was it ugly? He asked finally. No, I said. It was honest. He nodded slowly. That's rare. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the glass walls in molten gold. I turned toward it, watching my reflection blur with the city beyond. A woman shaped by doubt, standing in the light she built herself. I used to think I wanted revenge, I said, but what I really wanted was peace. Reese smiled. And now? Now, I said, I have both. 3 months later, Atlanta moved slower, quieter, as if the city itself had turned a page. The headlines about Modern Hearth had vanished from the business section, replaced by newer scandals and fresher failures. My name, for once, wasn't attached to any of them. Perennial House had stabilized the market it disrupted and was expanding again. Not loud, not flashy, just steady. I'd stopped thinking about the walkers except when the occasional text from Eleanor appeared, always the same pattern. We're sorry. We miss you. Can we talk? The first few times I deleted them unread. Eventually, I stopped noticing. The house no longer felt like proof. It just felt like home. That morning, Reese arrived early for our strategy meeting. He'd traded his usual suit for a gray sweater and jeans, the rare sign he might, for once, be human and not machinery wrapped in charm. Morning, he said, setting 2 coffees on the counter. We made the Design Guild shortlist, Visionary Brand of the Year. I raised an eyebrow. That's the one with the televised gala? Yep, you'll have to give a speech. I'd rather face a hostile boardroom. He grinned. Same thing, different lighting. We worked for hours, cycling through numbers, plans, and product mock-ups until the afternoon sun turned the marble floors into mirrors. The business had become calm water, no waves, just movement. Around 3, Reese checked his phone. You're going to want to see this, he said. He handed it to me. On the screen was a news article. Former finance executive Preston Walker files for bankruptcy. A photo accompanied the headline. My brother leaving a courthouse, thinner, his famous smile gone. The article was merciless. Failed funds, unpaid investors, and a lawsuit pending from a former client. I stared at it for a long moment, then handed the phone back. The city eats its own. Reese watched me carefully. Do you feel sorry for him? I thought about that. Not exactly, just tired. He nodded, setting the phone down. You don't have to celebrate to win. That evening, I went to the VA hospital to meet with a local artisan we'd been funding through our sustainability grant. Her name was Danny, a Navy vet who crafted ceramic cookware by hand. She reminded me of myself 10 years ago, driven, raw, hungry. These are incredible, I told her, examining a bowl still warm from the kiln. You're not just making pottery, you're making permanence. She smiled shyly. That's what you said in your interview once. That permanence is just usefulness that refuses to quit. I laughed softly. Did I say that? You did. It's why I started this. When I left the hospital, the sky was the color of slate and honey. That in-between shade that promises storm or peace, but never says which. Back home, I poured a glass of wine and sat by the window overlooking the garden. The city lights shimmered like a constellation built by ambition. My phone buzzed once. Another message from Eleanor. We're selling the Buckhead house. It's too big for us now. Your father's health isn't great. If you can find it in your heart, please come by before we go." For a long time, I just looked at the words. My first instinct was to ignore it, to let silence do the talking as I had before. But something in the phrasing caught me. Not manipulation this time, but resignation. The next afternoon, I drove there. The house looked smaller, somehow. The hedges were overgrown, the shutters dull. The air of curated perfection had faded into something fragile. Eleanor opened the door. She looked older, softer maybe. "Aurelia," she said quietly. "You came." I nodded. "You said Dad's not well?" She led me through the once immaculate foyer. The photos were still on the wall, but the frames were uneven. Preston's awards were gone. My single graduation picture had been moved to the center. Arthur sat in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, his face paler, but his voice still carrying the old authority. "Didn't expect you to actually come." "I didn't expect to either," I said. Eleanor hovered behind him. "He's been asking for you." Arthur coughed, eyes flicking to the floor. "Not for help," he said, "for understanding." I waited. He exhaled, long and slow. "You were right. About everything. About me. About the way we measured you. I don't know if apology fixes it, but—" His voice broke. "I'm sorry." Eleanor's hand touched his shoulder, trembling. "We all are." For a moment, I just stood there. The years of silence pressed between us like fog. Then, quietly, I said, "I accept it, but it doesn't erase what happened." Arthur nodded. "It shouldn't." We talked for an hour, about nothing monumental, but real things. Weather, the neighborhood, the company. When I left, Eleanor followed me to the door. "I always knew you'd be something," she said softly. "I just didn't know how to see it until it was too late." I met her eyes. "Then maybe it's not too late now." She smiled, small but genuine. "Your father would like to visit your house someday, just to see it." "Maybe," I said. On the drive home, I realized something I hadn't before. Forgiveness isn't surrender. It's just letting go of the weight without forgetting how heavy it was. When I walked through my front door, Reese was there, setting down his laptop. "How'd it go?" "Not what I expected," I said. "But maybe that's the point." He nodded, reading my face. "Peace? Closer than I've ever been." Outside, dusk settled gently over the city, the kind of light that doesn't announce an ending, just an evening. I poured us both a glass of wine. "You know," I said, "I used to think success was proving everyone wrong." "And now?" Reese asked. "Now it's about proving myself right." He raised his glass. "To that." We clinked glasses. The sound was small, but it carried, clean, final, and free.